Alright guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we have a monster skill balancing patch. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look through these. I have read it over. I'm a little disappointed. We did get some good nerfs, but others not too happy about, but we'll see. You guys can be the judge of that. But for the first change, we have the Dark Mage, who has gotten, I believe it's a slight nerf. They originally absorbed the enemy's HP by 5% of your max HP up to 10%. It's now going to be 4% up to 8% per harmful effect granted on the target. So it's a slight nerf for the Dark Mage. Is it deserved? The Dark Mage hits pretty hard for just being able to rune very tanky. You guys can tell me if that's fair or not. But we have the Fire Beast Rider also got a nerf. Attack speed is now up to 10% instead of 15%. It's a slight decrease there. I know Marsh is a really strong fire threat against the wind units. And then we have the Omyujis, which Shizuka got nerfed. They are now no longer able to use their second skill on their self. I can fully understand Shizuka being too strong. She's a very powerful unit. I struggle against her sometimes. She's fun to use. I'm not happy with how they chose to nerf her in this case. I feel like it would be way more justified if they made it so that she doesn't get the cooldown effect if she uses it on herself. I think it sucks that she can't soul protect herself anymore, because that leaves her with no protection whatsoever. I know they nerfed Ganymede in the past. He used to be able to ventilate himself, which became a very big problem. And so I can see why they kind of made that change to her, but I'm not happy with it. I don't feel like that was the correct way to adjust her. Like, it would be nice if she could still soul protect herself. And poor Light Omyuji has to deal with the same thing, but they did increase her passive here. It's now the ally recovers the HP by 10%, is now going to be 15% per harmful effect granted on the target at the start of the ally's turn. So I guess it's a small way to try to help buff her for that nerf. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments below. I really am curious what everyone thinks about that, whether it's good or bad. I'm personally not too happy with it. I feel like they could have changed it better. Hopefully it's something they'll fix later on. We'll see, but yeah. Okay, so next we have the Ryus. This is the same for all the Ryus and Strikers in the family. The absorb attack bar from the second skill of all enemies used to be 10 to 20%. It's now going to be 10 to 15% with a 30% chance. Can see why there's a nerf. It's definitely a tricky skill to deal with. Personally, I'm a little sad that they would nerf the Ryu and not touch any of the wind or dark robot skills, because I feel like they are just very good versions of that instead. So personally, I'm not happy with it. I'm always annoyed fighting the water Ryu, even being able to use it. I feel like anytime I use water Ryu, he sucks. But anytime the opponent uses water Ryu, he's just like insane despair stuns, god tier. So this one's okay, but I wish they'd make his strip chance better. I'm still sad about that nerf. So same, the light Ryu got tweaked that way, and so did the fire Ryu and Shadow Claw. Now the Dark Striker, they have made it so that their 5th hit removes one beneficial effect of all enemies, and it's going to be the 6th hit that decreases the duration of harmful effects. I feel like it's going to be better for the Ryu in general. He can be used as an AoE stripper, which I don't know what his base speed is for that. He will no longer be able to two-turn increase the debuffs, because the first hit's only going to be a strip, and then it's going to be the second hit that will increase the duration. Which I believe his first couple of hits can also strip, can't they? On one target. I'm interested to see how this is going to change him. I think it'll make him more viable. It'll make him a little bit less of a control unit, maybe? We'll see. So now, to summarize most of these, we have a bunch of druid buffs, and basically they made it so that all of the druids can now activate their effects while they are in the beast form. I think it's a great change for them. It's just going to make them all better in general. And there are a couple other units of the druids that got other changes on top of that. We have the fire druid, absorbs the enemy's attack bar by 15%, is now going to be 25% when you attack on your turn. We have the light druid, who did get nerfed. Their counterattack is not going to be a 15% or a 50%. It's going to be a 40% chance when you get attacked. And the dark druid has an added effect, which increases the attack bar by 20% when you get granted with inability effects, which is going to be pretty interesting for him, so he can help speed up to get his little cleanse thing going. But other than that, we have the water druid gets their attack bar increased, the wind druid gets the defense increase, the fire druid, I believe, does its defense break, and then the light druid can still glance, the dark one can do its immunity. I think it's pretty pretty useful. Part of me was really hoping they would adjust the water druid a bit. I really want him to be an HP type. I don't think him being a defense type makes sense. He'd function so much better as like how the dark druid does, as an HP based damage dealer. Because really with the druid, you need to ruin him with defense so he can do damage, but all of his counters are like ignore defense, and so it just doesn't make any sense. Like Lucian being his biggest use against, it's like I wish they will adjust that eventually. So next we are on to the Shadowcasters. So the Fire Shadowcaster now gets Shadow Protect when he uses his Destructive Shadow skill. It's not a crazy change, but it's not bad. We have the Wind one, who now removes all beneficial effects when it uses its skill, and they changed Shadow Tie a bit for the Wind and Light Shadowcaster. It now increases your attack bar by 100% after using the skill, and the max cooldown is being increased by 1. Really, all that's going to do is help them cycle their third skills more and potentially get out of debuffs, which could be an interesting change for sure. And then we have Oliver, the Wind Sky Surfer, finally got a nerf again. I want to say this is a step in the right direction, but it's not really going to change fundamentally how he works, which is the biggest problem with him. They have removed the damage increase every time he uses his Mega Gun Impulse, so he's not going to be able to ramp up over time in RTA as much. You know, obviously the attack power increase when HP decreases will still be a thing because that's how RTA works, but it's not going to be as powerful, which is going to help when dealing with him more. Fundamentally, he's still going to work the same way. He's still going to perma AoE reset. I say AoE, he's going to single target reset your entire team without giving you a chance to do anything. But we'll see if this is going to help. You know, obviously I'm biased and I struggle to deal with him, but let's see what the community thinks about it if he's still insane after this. Okay, next up we have the Light Sky Surfer, who now gets to stun all enemies for 1 turn with a 50% chance. And I believe this is on his third skill, which is the AoE reduce enemies HP based off their attack bar. Is pretty interesting. You reduce their attack bar and stun can be pretty powerful. So we'll see how strong that makes him. Okay, and then we have a change for Theomar's the Water Ifrit, which I'm actually really interested to see how much better this will make him. They've added an effect that increases your attack power for 2 turns when you receive a fatal attack. So this is for Endure. I'm pretty sure anytime he buffs his Endure now, he is going to get an attack power buff for 2 turns. I wonder how that's going to work with other effects. I mean, obviously this is the wording of it, so, you know, if you give him other Endure buffs, does he just get attack power, or is it only when he receives damage that will be fatal? We'll see how it works, but for the bright side of the way it's working right now, he'll just get attack power buff when he procs his Endure passive, which for me and my RTA team, I'm going to have to play around with that more, just to see how much powerfuler that makes him, because currently I just run speed buff with Wayne, but if I can get speed buff and attack buff on Theomar's, he's going to hit pretty hard when he gets in his Endure state, especially because I have attack power as your HP decreases on him with artifacts. It's not a crazy change, but I think it's going to be pretty interesting, so I am excited to see how this works. Okay, next up we have the Wind and Dark Ifrit. They now decrease the attack bar of the target by 50% if the target is not stunned after attacking. That, I think, is really interesting. I wonder how that's going to work with, like, resistance, if that's going to be resistible or not. Definitely going to be a good buff for Veramos. I don't know how useful it's going to be for the Wind one, but we have the Wind Phoenix. The Tempest passive is now going to be a 4-turn cooldown instead of 5 turns, which I believe the cooldown gets reduced as he kills things. So it'll give him less enemies that he needs to kill to get it back potentially. So now we have the Wind Weapon Master. They did nerf Dominic. They've made it now so that he attacks additionally, dealing damage equal to 100% of his attack power. It used to be 200% when attacking an enemy on your turn. And this attack increases the damage by 100% if your HP is more than 50 and recovers the HP by the damage dealt if it's 50% or below. He used to absorb the enemy's attack bar by 30% if his HP was higher. They removed that and put back that damage increase there. This is a nerf for Dominic. He's still going to do as much damage when he's full health, but when he's lower on health, he's not going to be able to damage and heal actually as well. He does recover the HP by the damage dealt if it's 50% or below, but it's no longer going to be as much damage, so he's not going to be able to sustain himself as much when he's low. I'm glad they nerfed him. He is a bane of my existence, a very powerful unit. I am interested how you guys feel about that in the comments. You know, obviously I'm biased, and it's not that they have to nerf every wind unit so that I'm happy, but I do think this is a better balanced patch for me. Even they haven't given me too many good units to play around with besides Theomars, but so far they have been nerfing some of their really strong picks. So we have the light weapon master, who has now got very interesting changes. I always found it crazy that the light weapon master was worse than Dominic. Now at this point, I think it's going to be way better. So the light weapon master, they have changed the deals damage that ignores defense is now going to be it resists death if the target enemy HP is at 30% or below. So I believe it ignores, kind of weird with their wording, I think it's going to ignore effects that resist death if the enemy's at 30% or below. It'll be kind of interesting against, like, say, Triana maybe, but they didn't remove the defense. It now actually always deals damage that ignores defense, and the damage that ignore defense will be adjusted as the conditions have been removed. They're going to adjust the amount of damage it ignores, but at least the unit will always be able to ignore defense, which makes him way more useful, I think. Now, we'll have to wait and see how much damage that actually does, but I think it's a good change for him. So next up, we have the Wind Ginger Brave got changed. They now increase the enemy's skill cooldown for 2 turns instead of 1. Is better than before. I don't know how great that's going to make it. I'm pretty sure it doesn't have 100% activation rate, which I think it does need if they really want to make it good. It could potentially, depending on the cooldown of the skill, perma reset someone's cooldown, so it could be interesting maybe. And then next we have all of the macaroons or hollyberry cookies got some buffs, which is very good, I think. I think they all definitely needed some buffs. So first off, their first skills are all going to decrease defense for 2 turns with a 40% chance instead of provoke, which I wonder what that end effect is going to be with skill ups. I don't know how high that's going to go up to, but defense break on first skill is a very strong thing to have, so it's very good buffs for them all around, I think. And then I believe they each got a change to some of their skills. So the fire one now decreases their attack speed by 20% until the next turn starts when they activate their third skill, which is very similar to the way String Masters work. I think it's a really good adjustment they made for the fire one. You'll be able to rune her quick to get her defense thing up, and then it'll be able to last longer. So I think that's a very good adjustment for her. We have the wind unit now creates a shield that's proportionate to the caster's defense instead of max HP. Now, I don't know how good of a change that's going to be. If you want to rune her for damage, it's going to be probably better. You'll be able to focus more defense on that and not have to focus HP, but usually in this game, HP is way better than defense, with the exception of certain units. So if you rune her solely for defense, you know, you're worried about getting cleaved with like Lucian or ignore defense comps. So I don't know how good of a change this is going to be, but we'll have to see. And then we have the light one got each attack recovers the HP of all allies by 30% of the damage dealt, which is like the, is it the Light Griffin that does the healing? Second Awakened Light Griffin? It's kind of comparable to that. I'm interested to see if it's useful. Like, she defense breaks on her first skill, scales up her defense. Kind of gonna be like Artemil with defense break, so definitely got to be a little worried about her. Okay, and then finally we got a buff to the water and dark cookies or guards. So they've really changed the way their second skill works. It no longer removes one harmful effect granted on all allies and increases their attack bar by 50% each. They've pretty much reworked the skill. It now increases your defense for 3 turns and becomes immune to harmful effects for 3 turns. You instantly recover a turn after using this skill as well. One of my guildmates made the comparison. It's kind of similar to a defense-based Rakan S2. So you get 3-turn defense buff, but since you recover the turn, it's only going to be 2 turns, really. So every 2 turns, you'll have this up. You'll have your defense, but you'll be immune to harmful effects, which is really strong, actually, if you can get this off. So I definitely think will runes are going to be pretty mandatory for her. I'm actually really excited about this change. I don't have one, and it definitely makes me want one more. Being immune to harmful effects, I'm pretty sure is just everything for what's classified as that. I don't know if this, and I don't think it's a debuff that can be stripped or removed or anything. So obviously you can remove the defense buff, but I think this is going to make her much more viable against these CC comps that we see in RTA, especially the like Chung Pung, Wind Robot, you know, even the maybe can deal against Oliver, potentially. She still has to glance on her first skill, so I don't know how great it's going to be, she'll be comparable to Josephine, like kind of a worse Josephine. I definitely think they'll be good together. I can already see the Water Guard with Wind Monkey, real pain bruiser comps. I think it's going to be a really strong change for her. I do want to see how it goes. Is it going to be too much? It might be potentially. So we might have to see if she gets nerfed in the future. We'll see. Obviously, we'll need to play test around with it. Hopefully I can at some point if the game wants to give me one. But I am excited for that change. It's probably the change I'm most excited for besides Theomars. They didn't really give me too much to play around with this patch for water units, which is a shame. One thing to note about this, I believe it's going to be single target effect. There's no way they're making this AoE. So she's no longer going to be an AoE support unit. She's going to be more of a bruiser herself. Won't have to focus any resistance on her. If she's immune to harmful effects, you won't need resistance. You just need to make sure she gets that first turn in your set, which is what the will runes will be for. Okay, so next we have buffs to the water espresso cookie. If these enemies' attack bar is reduced to 0, you are guaranteed to freeze the target. I guess if the enemy's attack bar is 0. So if you already reduce them to 0, you're going to be guaranteed to freeze them, and her passive and second skill decreases a lot of attack bar. That's going to be really strong if they can't resist out of it. I am very curious how that's going to work with glancing, because her passive does glance. Like the attack bar decrease of her passive does glance. Even if the enemy is frozen, if she glances, she still will not reduce their attack bar, which I've tested against wind units. She can still decrease wind units attack bar pretty well, but it can glance, which, you know, I'm not happy about. I don't know why it should work like that. If the target's already frozen, I think it should still just reduce. This means that she's going to be really effective with units that can decrease attack bar though. So say like Poseidon, AoE reduce the attack bar with Poseidon, and then we follow up with her skill, which they should already be at 0 attack bar to begin with, and so she can then just guarantee freeze and they can't resist out of it, which is pretty nice. I would like to see maybe some increases to her damage for her passive. I don't really feel like 10% is enough. Maybe something along that route, maybe an increase of that would be nice in the future, but definitely let me know what you guys think about her in the comments, if this can be a good change. I think it's definitely a step in the right direction for her CC potential. It's going to help a lot in TOA and TOA health for sure. She's a great unit for that. Probably going to help against wind units, but we'll have to see. And then we have the wind and dark one, also got the same change for their skill pretty much. Oh, but it's different wording because they stun. That is a nice thing to know. For the most part, if you didn't know, freeze and stun does the same thing. It's just they let water units freeze instead of stun. There's very few water units that actually stun the target, which is just a little fun tidbit to know about water units. Not that stuns and freezes do anything different. It would probably make one too powerful over the other. Could you imagine if freeze slowed enemies down a little bit or something? It would be very gross. Definitely not healthy for the game, but one can hope. And now for the fire and light one, the HP loss is in proportion to the enemy's reduced attack bar. It used to be 30 up to 5% if it's a boss. It's now going to be 40 up to 10% of a boss. I think it's going to be a lot more damage overall, so we'll have to see how that goes. And then we have the dark one, got another buff. So it used to attack all enemies and even out the ratio of HP and attack bar afterwards. It now evens out the ratio of all enemies' HP and attack bar and attacks them afterwards. So this lets you do a little bit extra damage, I think. Or is this a nerf? I don't know if it's a nerf or a buff with this. Maybe it is. We'll have to see. I think it's a buff because it evens out their HP and then reduces it further. We'll see how that's going to be. Now, the Fire Sylphid got a buff to her passive. She used to decrease the enemy's attack bar by 25% when you're attacking. It now decreases the effects of skills that decrease attack bar of your allies by 20%. So that's interesting. She's going to be much more of an anti-control unit, like even more than she is already. And then we had buffs to the Horuses for their second skill. The skill cooldown time instead of 5 turns is going to be 4 turns, which means they'll be able to have that up way quicker. I think it's going to go down to, what, is that going to be a 3-turn cooldown total? Okay, so I did take a look at it. Horus skills are now going to be a 3-turn cooldown with skill ups because I have an extra cooldown from that. I'm not so sure how good it's going to be for the water Horus. Maybe the wind one. It's going to be a really big buff for the dark one though. The dark Horus's passive got buffed. Each attack removes 1 beneficial effect from the enemy with a 30% chance. So now what used to be the only counter for the dark Horus, use will runes and it would counter the dark Horus. Now you can't really do that. He's still going to be able to cut in anyway and potentially strip stun you with despair. And so I can see dark Horus being way more used now. He wasn't Holly Heroes unit, so everyone pretty much has one. I wonder how he's going to fare now. I think he's definitely going to be stronger. So a little worried about that, seeing him meta again. Because honestly, I used to struggle with him a lot in the past, going against him with my speed team. Lastly, we have the Wind Mermaid, who got a buff from 1 turn to 2 turn cooldown on Crushed Hope. I believe it's the 3rd skill that does the reset. It's now going to be a 2-turn reduce, which just makes the Wind Mermaid stronger. So not bad there. And then we have 2 leader skill changes. First off is going to be the Fire Puree, who instead of resistance leader skill is going to have an attack speed leader skill by 19%. It's going to be a pretty good change for the Fire Puree. I can see this making her a lot stronger in potentially Siege. It is only a 19% leader skill though, so I don't know if people are going to use that compared to like a 24% lead. It's going to make her leader skill a lot more useful. I wonder what combinations people will come up with. Lastly, we have the Water Puree got a change to her leader skill. It's no longer going to be a 30% accuracy lead. It's now just going to increase the attack power of ally monsters by 25%. I think it's better than the accuracy lead for sure, though I'm not exactly sure how helpful that's going to be for me. I don't benefit at all from this change, I don't think, though I am curious how you guys are going to benefit from it. Let me know if there's combinations you come up with, because like the teams I use Julie with are with Wayne as my booster, who gives me 30% attack buff already. And in dungeons, I use the Water Cannon Girl with Julie, who already has, it's like a 38% attack buff increase for units in dungeons. I'm not really sure what the goal was with this change, because they didn't buff anything else about Julie this patch. I'm not going to complain about it. Buff's a buff. And I think lastly, they increased the AI of the light cookie. Their skill will now be used in more appropriate situations, which we'll have to wait and see what that turns into, if that helps make her more useful. Other than that, we just got a couple bug fixes if we can look at. They did a bug fix for the Maladine cookies, which, unless I missed them, they didn't change any of them in this balance patch, which is a shame. I was really hoping if they adjusted the cookies, the espressos. So I was hoping to get some Maladine buffs, maybe be able to use them more. But I still, personally, I have not found an effective use for the water Maladine cookie yet. So maybe let me know how you guys are using it. I just don't know yet. I think that unit definitely needs buffs. Their second skill should give them an immediate turn for sure, or at least do like a AoE attack when they use it, because it sucks when you use the skill and then you just get attacked and don't even get the chance to use it again. That's gonna be it for this balance patch. Do let me know what you think about these units, potential changes in the comments down below. If there's any units that you're kind of excited to see coming up. Unfortunately, there weren't too many water units that got tweaked this time around. I'll try to do some updated showcases on the ones I can. We have a couple that we can really look at, so expect those at some point in the future. I still don't have the Macaroon, but I'm hoping to get her. Keep in mind that I am in fact a water account, so I do have some biases against wind units, but I don't want to be unfair to the units, of course, so we are more than welcome to discuss these wind nerfs in the comments down below. Let's just be respectful and not hateful about it. That's pretty much all I ask for. I'm definitely open for just some good open discussion about stuff. Always down for that. That's going to be it for this video. Thanks for stopping by, and I will see you all in the next video. All right, bye everybody.